Alright, here we go. Almost 1 year later, it's time for our annual PlayStation predictions. So, as always, I will grade myself on last year's predictions, see how well I did, and then we'll do some new ones for the very exciting upcoming 2020 year. And for obvious reasons, the upcoming year is going to be very exciting because we have that brand new console generation launch with PlayStation 5, and I'm excited, but I spent so much time thinking about this. I want to be very accurate, but that's mostly because my 2019 year didn't do that well. Probably my worst year, to be honest, which you'll find out right now. We'll do the grading portion first, and also, here's a timestamp. I know some of you may want to jump right to the 2020 stuff. It's more exciting, and this video will, in all likelihood, be very long in the tooth. But we'll do the grading stuff first, and we always start with our sales predictions. So, unfortunately here, we have to wait until like mid-January to get very accurate numbers for Sony's sales over the holiday season, so I can't 100% say these things with certainty. We'll have to go off pretty good guesstimates here. But last year for PlayStation 4, I predicted Sony would sell 106 million, but then in post-editing, I changed that to 108 million by the end of 2019. And so the recent figures that we have is 102.8 million at the end of October 30th. Considering holiday season, Sony sells millions of units. The last figure from the previous year, Sony sold 5.9 million consoles over the holiday season. So now you know they're not going to sell 5.9 million this year. It's another deep year of the PS4 life cycle, so they're going to sell less than that. So I am hoping that I'm fairly close here, where PS4 as of right now is around 107 to 108 million units. So for that prediction, I would say I was kind of right. We'll find out in mid-January for sure. With PlayStation VR, I predicted 5 million units. Now, this is another one where I'm thinking I might be very close here, because the last figure we had for PSVR, which we don't get accurate numbers for that very often, we had 4.2 million units in either April or March. That's very early into 2019, since we had a figure. We had very good PSVR sales. It only sells a handful of 100,000 units every so often. So I'm guessing that it is close to that. I'm sure there's still a good, decent margin of error here where it's around 4.8 or maybe even 5.1, 5.2. But I'm guessing we're pretty close to 5 million for that prediction as well. So for sales, not too bad, and we eliminated PlayStation Vita finally. But for the prediction portion, we'll be adding PS5, so that'll be interesting. Now, for my second prediction, I said Dreams reviews well, but sees soft sales. Now, here's the thing. Dreams didn't have an official release. We had an early access release, so that's much different. It sold in very low volume. The last real figure that we had for early access was around 100,000. So I guess in that sense I'm correct, but not necessarily in the sense that, well, the game didn't have a full traditional release at retail and digital where it's considered a final game. It got review scores. That really didn't play out, and that will play out in February. So to be honest, I'm not going to predict that again, but I still think that's probably going to happen in February when the game comes out, but not entirely accurate there. Number 3, I said The Last of Us Part 2 releases holiday season, and it includes a controversy of some kind. Basically, I argued as well as this game's going to do, the magnitude of it, the amount of people that are going to play it, the sensitive topics that Naughty Dog likes to cover. I felt like people are going to play the game, find something in there that might set people off, and that's about as ambiguous as I was really going to get because we don't know what's in the game. Now, The Last of Us Part 2 did not come out, so incorrect. I will say that we had, and it was never really confirmed, of course, but we had a lot of rumors suggesting that The Last of Us Part 2 was internally delayed. So it was supposed to hit this year, and now it did not. And then what's funny is that when it got a release date, it got publicly pushed back. So clearly they needed a few extra months, well beyond what they even initially thought they were going to hit. Number 4 was laughable too. Death Stranding releases in the fall, reviews exceptionally well. Now, so I was right about releasing in the fall, which I want to give myself some credit here for, because at the start of 2019, nobody knew when the game was going to come out. We had no idea what the game was about. It was such this, it was a complete shot in the dark, but I felt like the timeline matched up to where, okay, Death Stranding's got to release in 2019, certainly the later half. So I got that portion correct. Reviews exceptionally well, no. Clearly the game was divisive to a number of people, but it's very much like Days Gone, where it's not a bad game. It's not, it's obviously you got a lot of people coming in the woodwork saying, oh, I'm so tired of Kojima games and how they're so overblown. You either love the game or you don't. So it's a game that got, it's still sitting at like an 80-something on Metacritic that has obviously favorable reviews, but I'm going to admit, of course, it's not 9s across the board, so looks like, and to be honest, I really should have seen that coming, but half correct there. Number 5, PS4 firmwares continue to be boring. New features are essentially over. suggesting that we had that one major firmware update that didn't do anything, and we had one major firmware update this year that gave us increased party chat transcripts, some other somewhat small quality of life, but I guess significant enough to where it was way more meaningful than, what was it, 6.0 that did like absolutely nothing. So 7.0 did add some things. I guess you could really, that would be up to your interpretation. I don't think it was very exciting, but it's not in the same veins of what I was predicting necessarily. So again, I'd consider that one half right. Number 6 was a bunch of small stuff, but I felt like all three were going to happen. PS Classics come to PlayStation Store. PlayStation Now gets aggressive with a library of over 1,000 games. PS Plus gets a minimum of 3 to 4 PS4 games. Now, it's so disappointing that did not happen. PS1 Classics still have not come to the PlayStation Store. I've predicted that the last, 2 years now, I think, and it's still baffling that Sony hasn't, in some way, meaningfully repackaged PS1 games on the store when they did so many on PlayStation 3. PlayStation Now, I got 1/3 of that right. They definitely got aggressive with it. It's down to a lower price. You've got rotating quality PS4 games in there. You've got the download feature for up to 300 some odd games. Unfortunately, the whole library is not over 1,000. It's at 850 some odd titles. So, out of all this, I was 1/10 correct? That's not very good at all either. Here's where I got really crazy. And I still think these are going to happen. I would hope it would happen, because it's just in the tea leaves of what Sony always does. Number 7, I said PS4 Super Slim announced official MSRP cut to $250. Now, we have plenty of PlayStation 4 sales where you can get a PS4 and a bunch of games and a huge hard drive for $250 or even less. But the PlayStation 3 generation was the first one where Sony revised their home console another time. And so I felt that would make sense. It's going to be one of the last years of PS4 where it's super relevant. Didn't happen, of course, and we never got these consoles still have not seen an official MSRP cut at all. You can get them for well under $300, $250 if it's a Pro or a base model, but there's still no, as far as my understanding in the U.S., at least for my territory and then most other territories, no official MSRP cut. It's always retailer bundles or whatever. That didn't happen, and then number 8 was a PS4 Pro Slim with an MSRP cut to $350, which did not happen. Again, PS4 Pro, same thing. You can get it for less than $350, well less than $350 with some games. So I'm not sure what's going on there. No slimmed down revision of the box, and that was a pretty bold prediction, but I feel like it should still happen at some point, right? We'll talk about that later. Number 9. Sony holds a special event after E3 to reveal PS5. Follows the same formula of the PS4 reveal. Most rumors hold true. So, most rumors did hold true. That's the thing. That's why we cover so many rumors on this channel, because it's happened so many console generations. A lot of it does end up being true. You just kind of have to pick your battles in terms of which ones you want to believe and which ones seem to make most sense. And when you aggregate a lot of multiple sources that don't know each other, get a good idea of what the thing's going to look like. We did get a small event, which is a Wired.com coverage. It was officially announced, but they just did it in such a very informal way. I don't think anybody really saw this coming, except there was I think that was that one Reddit post it was a Pastebin post that pretty much said you were going to get a really weird small reveal and then a major reveal later, which half of that was correct for that. Number 10, Sony ignores Gamescom, Paris Games Week, TGS, and most trade shows. Holds PSX 2019 to show more PS5. Now, this was the assumption that we had an actual PS5 traditional reveal event, which didn't happen. We didn't get PSX. We didn't get E3, which is so weird. Because obviously I thought, oh yeah, Sony's going to be at E3. Well, they skipped all those trade shows, but they also skipped E3, and the opposite, they didn't hold PSX either. So, kind of right on that one, not really. Just more of a mix-up of which shows they would and would not be a part of. So I almost feel like a lot of what I predicted in 2019 was a year off. I was a bit more optimistic, but see, my timeline was PS5 wasn't going to launch in 2019. That would be ridiculous. But rather, the later half of the year, we would hear about it and learn about it, which we did to a degree, not to what I was predicting. And then you would see most of 2020 be the hype, build-up, release, see the games, publishers talk about it, all that stuff that we usually see with a brand new generation launch. But it seems like it's much more muted this time around, where we are hearing about PS5 and Xbox Series X, but it's very, very small compared to how it played out the previous gen, and then even previous generations beyond that. But now let's get to the 2020 predictions, what you all came here for. We'll start with sales. Like we said earlier, PS4 around 108 million units currently. By the end of 2020, I would assume that PS4 is around 122 million. Now, you may think that's high, but PS4, very successful console, and that number actually still puts it at a downward trend of decreasing sales, which is going to happen in 2020. It's just a matter of how much of a degree, how bad will it be? So this puts it a few million less than the previous year. I still think Sony's going to do a few things that will bolster those sales a little bit. We still have The Last of Us coming. We still have Ghost of Tsushima coming. That is a PS4 game, and it will be a PlayStation 4 title when it launches. I still think that we will see new hardware with PS4 just for that nice little send out the door there. PlayStation VR, again, around 5 million, very rough. But for PSVR, not very optimistic. I'm going to assume 5.7 million. Basically, I don't think it's going to hit another million at this point. When it's already doing such low volume sales this late in the life cycle, you've got this many PS4s out there. Now, the tough part, PlayStation 5. Assuming that it launches in 2020, holiday season like Sony's planning, this is going to be very difficult to predict because, so PS4 last year, or excuse me, in 2013 when it launched, was only on the market for, you know, a little less than 2 months, but a brand new system, so it's very exciting. It sold 4.2 million units at the end of 2013. And there's so much at play here. If Sony can keep up with manufacturing, if it's a reasonable price, if there's enough marketing, how many territories will they launch in? Will they make a blunder like Microsoft did in 2013 or like Sony themselves did in 2006 with PS3? There's a lot at play. So this was the toughest thing for me to kind of guess here. I'm going to put out around 5 million. So I'm thinking it's going to do better than 4.2 million like the PlayStation 4. One of those. Here's a really stark contrast here that I found very fascinating. Here's a tweet from the PlayStation Twitter account in 2013 announcing PlayStation 4. Now here's another tweet from Sony announcing PlayStation 5. And look at the amount of engagement between these two. Obviously more people on Twitter, but it's a matter of how many more young people are playing games nowadays. Games still continues to grow. More and more people are playing video games, and the Sony brand, the PlayStation brand, is still very dominant. So I think, assuming that they manufacture enough, it's in enough territories, I think they're going to beat their PS4 numbers. Which initially I was thinking maybe they'll actually do a little less for some reason, for some sort of unforeseen circumstance. But I'm going to stick to around 5 by the end of 2020. Number 2, PlayStation 5 Reveal event in February, similar to the PS4 one. Sony shows the box this time. So yeah, this is kind of like the one that I just predicted last year that was off by a year. But what's different here is that this time they will show the box. I think they're well aware of that criticism that they didn't actually show a console design in 2013. So I think they'll do that this time around. Number 3, Sony's secret San Diego team is revealed working on a PS5 exclusive, and it's a new IP. Now, some of you may not even remember this rumor, but this is not even a rumor. I mean, it's like Sony's worst kept secret right now. We know that they have another team in San Diego right now working with Naughty Dog, working with the VASG team, creating a third-person action-adventure title that's considered the next generation of cinematic storytelling. It's a PS5 game. Sony San Diego doing MLB. Now they'll be very busy doing multiple MLBs on multiple platforms. We know that they have another team. We need to find out what this team is. It's going to be originally formed in-house, and they're going to be doing something. A lot of people think it's another Uncharted, which I can see why they might think that. I hope it isn't. I think it's a new IP, although I wouldn't be surprised if it's another Uncharted. But no doubt this team is secretly working on a PlayStation 5 game, and it's going to be revealed, and it's going to be aiming for I don't know if it'll be a launch title, but it's obviously a PlayStation 5 game, and we're going to find out about it next year. Number 4, Bluepoint Games' PS5 game is a Demon's Souls remake, and the developer joins Worldwide Studios. So I think this has been on the table for quite a while now. Sony keeps talking about acquiring more developers. Bluepoint Games fits that bill. They've got that history with one another where they've done nothing but ports, perfect remasters, HD collections, and now full-blown remakes with Shadow of the Colossus. This next game seems to be pointing towards a Demon's Souls remake, and it's probably going to look very good if it turns out to be that. I'm sure it will actually look very impressive, and they can continue to either bring back all these amazing classics under Sony's belt. And I think that's the picture that fits them well. Now, I'm not going to predict that they'll acquire Remedy, which I still think is very likely to happen, actually. But this is one where I think it almost seems certain, and it's just a matter of when. I mean, even the studio president of Blue Point recently said that they have a great relationship with Sony, but they're still an independent studio. A conversation's there. I think it's going to happen. Number 5, PS4 Super Slim and PS4 Pro Slim introduced with an MSRP price cut. I'm just going to group this together, and initially I was thinking, well, what if they just got rid of the base PS4, and then PS4 Pro is the only PS4 model, and that one gets dropped down to, let's say, 300 MSRP, which then you'd see retailer bundles of 250 easily. But that, I don't know, I don't think that works. Then I was also playing in my head, well, wait a minute, they've got 2 boxes now. Maybe they aren't going to bother to redesign either one of them, and they will just do a standard MSRP cut. I don't know. I'm going to just stick with it. PS4 Pro is a very bulky system. They could, they can get it down. They can get it smaller. And why get rid of the base PS4 at that point? Either leave that design the same or slim down just PS4 Pro, make that a more compelling box at the outgoing PS4 life cycle. I think there's got to be a need to keep it a bit relevant, even though they want to transition PS4 players to PS5 at an unprecedented rate. Which is a good segue to number 6. During E3, an upgrade program is announced, either for physical PS4 hardware with partnered retailers or Sony's website, because remember, Sony does now sell gaming hardware right on their site, or for your games if PS5 versions are available. So in one way, shape, or form, I think Sony's going to detail an upgrade program, and I don't even necessarily think it has to be at E3, but when they keep talking about how they want to move PS4 to PS5, they are very concerned with keeping their market leadership. They're very concerned with keeping people in the PlayStation ecosystem, so I think there's going to be something in place that says, hey, that game that you bought, and we announced a PS5 version that's up to 4K, 60 frames, this and that, all this increased texture detail, whatever's super awesome about the PS5 version of X, Y, and Z. You're going to get free versions if you buy PS5, or hey, bring your PS4 to a Sony-approved retailer or something, and you can get a 150, 200 something discount off. Whatever they decide to do, I think something like that it might actually happen. Number 7, next-generation PlayStation Now and Remote Play. Promise of new tech, low latency, more games, a massive push. Sony had that partnership with Microsoft announced earlier this year. They're going to be buying the Azure cloud data center technology from them. They're basically paying for it. That's money in Microsoft's pocket, but that's exactly what Microsoft's using right now to achieve the low latency of xCloud, which isn't perfect, but a lot of people in the early preview program of xCloud are actually quite pleased. Same with people that are buying Stadia. The people that are having a good experience with Stadia, they actually really enjoy it, and they love the aspect of what that does for them right now. And it's so weird, honestly, that Sony is not even part of this conversation when it comes to Stadia, xCloud. But quite honestly, the experience on PlayStation isn't that good, even though they're the first here. And quite frankly, it's a little bit embarrassing. How can you have this great, on paper, great PS Now service that has 850 some odd games to stream, 300 of which are download, and yet people are consistently talking more about Game Pass, xCloud, Stadia, even if it's like bad press, it's still press nonetheless, right? Nobody's really talking about PlayStation Now. Sony's got to do something, and I think it would be a huge understatement to say that Sony is not preparing some sort of really big, massive push with PlayStation Now on PlayStation 5, where it is this multiple screen thing. Play your games on, iOS, Android, PC. That would be via Remote Play. PlayStation Now will have this super low latency, these new figures of how impressive it is and how quick it launches and things like that. So they got to do something. And I would hope that I'm correct on that one. Number 8, PS5 launch games include Blue Point's title and Gran Turismo 7, possibly Guerrilla's new IP or Horizon 2, but that might be a first 12-month type of game. This is hard to predict the launch games because I feel like a lot of it's going to be subject to change. Like with PS4, we were supposed to have Drive Club there day one. That didn't happen. So that's why I'm a bit eerie, but we've actually had a lot of rumors suggesting GT7 will be their day and date. And so I'm thinking that may actually happen. Polyphony's been pretty quiet. They're one of the last Sony developers to put out their PS4 title, so they've got a lot of turnaround. They're on x86 now, so they spent so much time building the game on x86 from the outgoing cell processor, so they've got everything built. They've got a lot of lengthy time to get GT7 ready. Same with Blue Point. With Guerrilla, they are another Sony developer where they're late in the game here, as in like their last piece of work was in 2017. And then you had a smaller team working on Frozen Wild, but Guerrilla's massive now. They've got a lot of people working on not only Horizon 2, but a new IP, or some still think it's Killzone. It's an FPS, though. We know it's an FPS. So that may be ready for launch, although I'm more leaning towards Guerrilla's game being one of the big exclusives that you would get within the first 6 to 12 months of the PS5 lifecycle, which you have to have. We all know that there's this timeline here, release schedules for the suite of Sony worldwide studios, so not everything is going to get out there day one. Number 9, there will be no mention of a next-gen PSVR or backwards compatibility beyond PS4 for now. So we know PS4 backwards compatibility is there. It's confirmed. If you've been on this channel for a while, you know we've talked about patents, rumors suggesting that maybe there's something going on beyond PS4 hardware, legacy hardware like PS3, PS2, PS1. Pretty much the only channel that really talks about this pipe dream that may or may not happen. But the reason why is because, well, the patents are there. We know for a fact that in some way, shape, or form, Sony's working on it. It's just a matter of, will it come as a feature? Will it be something that's available with the PlayStation 5 at some point in its life cycle? And that's what I'm going to argue here, is that not day one, possibly not ever, but it's not going to be there day one. Maybe it's still emulation's tough, especially if they're actually trying to achieve PS3 emulation, which it's tough to believe. But if they are doing something like that where they're trying to rival what Microsoft's doing with backwards compatibility, it's a very consumer-friendly thing, and it would be a huge, very impressive feat to say when you buy a PS5, you're going to have access to, what? How many games are in the total PlayStation library? 20, 30, 50 some odd thousand games? It's a lot. So I think it's something behind the scenes. I just don't know if it's going to come. And with PlayStation VR, well, this is kind of easy because Sony told us they're not going to launch PSVR right next to PS5. But I don't even think they're really even going to talk about it. They're just going to stay pretty hush-hush until a year to 2 years into PS5 to when they say, here's the next generation PlayStation VR. So no PSVR stuff at all. For our final prediction, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X both launch at $499. Both are extremely compelling, yet Sony still edges out an early lead. So my thinking here is that the Series X is going to be good. It's going to be. You can't fall on your face like Microsoft did in 2013, be the laughingstock of this generation, and not right your wrong. Now, if you're an Xbox fan, you are more than likely loving Game Pass right now. You love all the pro-consumer things that Microsoft has done throughout this generation to be about face. They've done awesome stuff, and quite frankly, if you're a PlayStation fan, you don't want them to fail. This isn't some weird sporting event where you want the other team to lose. I mean, you want nobody to lose their job. You want tons of publishers to be healthy. You want developers to be healthy. You want all manufacturers at play here. You want good features. You want good software. You want everybody to be in this game, and you want everybody to be doing well. And I think the Series X is going to be awesome. I think they're going to knock it out of the park. On that same notion, though, PlayStation 5, the PlayStation brand, I mean, it's just, not to say this with certainty, but quite frankly, they've got certain territories just straight up locked down. Europe loves PlayStation. It's just, they sell so well there. Same with Japan's pretty much considered an easy win, although it's not nearly as big when it comes to the console market nowadays, but it's still millions of consoles that quite frankly are just free to Sony and borderline zero to Microsoft. And same with, I mean, it's something like the United States or North America. I think that's a territory that's still up for grabs. I think Microsoft could take that back very easily if they really tried and had a good launch right off the jump. Even if they introduce the Series X right away, like the rumors are suggesting, so it's a $300 some odd entry point in the next gen, which would help them bolster sales. I still, to be honest, don't think it's just going to be enough. Which is why I say edge out a lead, because how it worked out in 2013, even as bad as Xbox One initially was, it still sold like 3 million something units at the end of 2013, whereas PS4 sold 4.2 million. When the numbers are that low, you're going to be pretty close anyway. So I think Sony's going to edge out those numbers a little bit. And plus, Microsoft last time around launched in very few territories compared to Sony. I'm not trying to be formulaic, but it's probably going to play out the same way. And I still think Sony's the favorite to win coming into the next one. It's just, it's tough to beat the PlayStation brand. If I'm being honest, there's just too many. It's just a very powerful force in the industry right now. The reputation of worldwide studios, how many people just play PS4, it sold really well. Microsoft's best console was 360 at 83, 84, 85 million units. I just feel as though Sony would have to do something absolutely monumentally terrible like the PS3 launch in order to not have an early lead. And when you think about it, we still have Mark Cerny architecting the system. I know a lot of people hate Jim Ryan, but I feel like that's a little weird and exaggerated because he's been with the company throughout all of PlayStation. Don't you kind of think that PlayStation's actually in good hands for a senior executive that's been with the company that long? You don't just throw somebody in who doesn't know what they're doing. He's been there from the beginning. And you still got a lot of other people there as well that have been integral to the PS4 success. So I just can't see them doing bad with PlayStation 5. I can see them doing worse. I can't see them just falling on their face again. But anyway, that is everything I think that's going to happen in the 2020 year for PlayStation. Very exciting coming up. I think I'm going to do pretty good. I think the only real toss-ups there are like anything regarding sales because it's such an unknown. And then if we're going to get revisions of current PS4 hardware. But otherwise, I think I might do pretty good. And the great thing about a video like this is your predictions, because I know there's a lot of varying opinions on the topic. So this is a great piece for discussion. And so by all means, go nuts in the comments. I know you will. It's just going to be, very fun. We don't get console generations every day. It's always a very exciting time. I love it, to be honest. I'm super excited. So we're going to do tons of content, as always, on the channel. And 2019 was a great year. This was the year that my channel really gained some serious traction. There's a lot of you where this is your first time seeing the predictions video and being a part of some of the stuff that we've been doing here for such a long time. And shout out to everybody that's been with me for so long. I know I always get messages and comments here and there saying you've been watching since LTPS 50 or when I did this weird unboxing from like 5 years ago. I love it. I appreciate all of you so much, and 2020 is going to be a fantastic year, not just for PlayStation and games, but here on this channel. So thank you so much for the overwhelming support. But that is everything. Thank you so much for watching, and if you are new, subscribe for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube, and you can and should follow me on Twitter at Mystic Ryan, and that's it. I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.